So yes, what I have planned as far as the Excel workflows go, I'll show you sort of two examples. So same process, but two different kinds of approaches, just to give you an idea what kind of different things we can do with workflows and especially the Excel-based workflow solution. So first example, I have a blank Excel or Excel just open here, no template. So what we can do also is we can just, if you don't happen to have a local copy of the file you will be working on, you can open it from the WinShuttle Foundation website. So Foundation is sort of this like central repository where you can store scripts. So when a developer, if you're not familiar with WinShuttle Foundation, it's when a developer then creates a script and publishes it, it will be published to this website. It's a SharePoint site where all the scripts will be stored. So then users can download the latest templates from that website. Or as in this example, they can just, again, using one of the Excel add-ins, they can open a template from the Foundation site directly from within Excel. So I'll select data template. We have a whole bunch of templates here on our Foundation site. So let's see, I'll make sure I pick up a proper one, which is a workflow related template. There we go. So now I have, there we go. I have opened up an Excel template. So basically this is a script that was created with WinShuttle Studio. Just normally as the developer went and recorded this and created the Excel template. In this example, this is what we call a cell-based mapping, which basically means that it's sort of a form-like Excel solution. So if you have not seen things like this before, this is also something that we can do with WinShuttle. The files do not always have to be like standard mass upload templates. They can be more graphical form style templates as well. In this example, all the fields are filled in already, so I don't really have to do anything. But normally this, you would probably save a blank template in the Foundation site, so you wouldn't want to have any values there. But just for demo purposes, our examples are pre-filled. So we can just go ahead and start or submit this. But before I do that, this is now, I have opened this from Foundation. So what I want to do is I want to save a local copy of this file. So for the Excel workflows, it's important that each Excel file that you submit, that it has a unique file name. So I've been using the date and timestamps here just to make sure when I have multiple files, so I don't accidentally use the same name. Anyway, you need to have some sort of naming convention. What it is, it's up to you how you want to name them. Just make sure that each file has a unique name. So then let's assume I now would have filled in this FB50 document. And again, the way this Excel workflow works is that this could be applied to any process, any SAP transaction. So it could be, it doesn't have to be finance related. It could be sales and deliveries related, master data, material management, whatever. Basically, you just, if you can record a script for it with WinShuttle Studio, whatever process, then you can enable and create a workflow for that solution as well. So, so to the interesting part, I should say, here is that now from the WinShuttle tab, we have now a new option here because we opened the file. Now we have an option here to submit to Foundation, which basically is a simple wizard that just asks, what is the data file, the name of the file. So we can click next here. That's fine, I already saved it using a unique name. Then if I want, I can add an attachment. So for the approval, this could be something like receipts or contracts or copies of something related to this. So for the reviewer, they can, if there's some additional information they need to take into account, you could add here an attachment. I have a couple of sort of dummy PDF files. So I can add one PDF file here. There we go, and that will be then uploaded and sent to the approver. That's optional, you don't have to do that. and then basically we are ready to submit this. So this would be the part of the originator. They open up a template from Foundation, fill it in, send it for approval, and then that's it. When you click OK, it closes the template. Now that would be the end of the sort of the originator's role. And now we would be sort of looking at this from the approver point of view. So it actually takes, in our case, like 3 to 5 minutes before this task appears for the approver. But earlier today I went ahead and I created a couple of processes so we can have something to work with. So again, this can be done directly from Excel. We'll also, the approver will get an email notification saying that there's a process or a task, a workflow task for them to approve. We can have a look in the next example how another way to do this. But now one option is to do this also within Excel by clicking on the tasks button, which opens up this task view, which lists all the open tasks here. So I have two processes or templates that I filled in and submitted earlier today. So I could pick one of them. Then I see the information here, and then I can open it in Excel, and I will then open up the file here. And then the attachments, those are available here again in the Excel add-in, looking at the Foundation tab or ribbon, or what do you want to call this. Supporting documents show up here. So the PDF we sent, the attachment is here. So if that was something I would need to review, I could open it here and make sure everything's okay. Then I would of course review the posting. I would probably maybe want to also validate this. So that's just how, just like with normal scripts, you can use validation here from the WinShuttle Run tab. I can run a validation against SAP. I'll just pick up the system here I want to connect. I have my credentials stored in here, so it'll automatically log me in, and then just it'll show us. Oh, actually, yeah, that's something we have enabled now. It doesn't actually allow me to do this in a non-productive environment. Okay, I would have to save a local copy of this and run the validation. But yeah, that's something you can also do, and we probably want to do it at some point. When you do the validation, it's up to you. You could have the originator first run the validation, then send it for approval, or you could have the approver do the validation before moving or submitting the file for posting to SAP. It's really up to you how you want to configure this. Either way, once the data has been reviewed, validation has been done, and so on, then what would be next is just to approve or reject this. We have these buttons here: approve, reject, and reassign. Reassign means that I could reassign this to another approver if it turns out that this is not something that I am responsible for. I could then reassign this to my colleague, and so on. Let's say I'm happy with this, how it is. I'll click on the approve button, and then all I need to basically do is, well, this is optional, but I can add some comments here, like saying that, okay, this is approved, and then I can click on the approve button here, and then it will be submitted to WinShuttle Foundation, where it will go into a queue, into a background posting queue, where it'll take some minutes in our case, where after which it will be processed and posted to SAP. Now, so let's see. I can open up the Foundation site so to show you what it then looks like on this end. So this is WinShuttle Foundation, which is a SharePoint site, and now I'm in the workflow section here, looking at workflow processes. So here we have. I can look at one earlier example because, again, like I said, it takes a few minutes before that is posted, but we have a bunch of slightly older workflows. So let's see what would be a good one. I think 47 is a similar posting. So this is one that was completed yesterday. So once the workflow is approved, like I said, it goes to a background posting queue, and then once it's processed, it ends up here in the list of completed processes. And I can come back here and see what was the process, who submitted it, who approved it, and whether it was posted correctly. Oh, that actually looks like this was a mass entry file. Let's take another one. This is maybe identical form style. So this sort of foundation site stores like the whole, keeps an audit trail of all these workflow postings. So I can see here that this form was submitted yesterday. The bottom part shows the workflow history. Actually, in our case, these are group tasks. So when I send an Excel for approval, it goes to 4 people, and then one of them can pick up and approve it. So actually, you can see that here I started it on April 26th. Then it was approved by me at this time, and it shows whatever comments I had there. And then you can actually see here some basic data, like how many rows were processed, how many errors there were, and I can actually open up the Excel file here from Foundation just to check the file, verify it, and here in the log message, I actually see the SAP message that the document was posted, and gives us the document number here as well. And the attachments would be here inside this Excel as well. So all the data will be stored here in the WinShuttle Foundation site. And again, this sort of view is something that's fully customizable. That's just something we put together, some basic fields here, but you could add more details here in this view regarding the posting, for instance, what it was related to, and so on and so forth. So that would be one way to work with these Excel-based workflows. I'll show you another example, which is sort of similar with a slightly different kind of approach. We have a mass entry template here. Again, this is an FP50 template, but this time, instead of being a single posting like the earlier one, here we have a handful of different general ledger postings using a loop construct. Just a more or less a standard FP50 script that has been then linked to the Excel workflow. So let me just first log on to WinShuttle here. So the first part would be more or less identical. I would maybe validate this, then send it for approval, add attachments if I need it, and so on. So the first part would be the same. I would again take the file, submit it, just go through this wizard. Let's say I will not add an attachment this time. Just click next, submit, and then it's sent to the approval, or in our case, the group of approvers, and one of them will hopefully then pick it up. So now, instead of doing this from Excel, we can do the approval directly from the Foundation website as well. So like I said, all tasks will generate an email. So for instance, I have an example email of an earlier task here. So you get this kind of email saying that, okay, there's an activity and a task for pending your approval, shows you some details of the posting, who generated it, and so on. And then it contains a link to the Foundation website. So you can just quickly come in here, and then when you come to the Foundation website, then on the main page, you see all active tasks that you currently have in Foundation. So you don't necessarily need to do this from Excel. You can instead come here and open up the process or workflow here, then review it. Again, I would open up the file here, then check it in Excel, make sure that it looks correct. Okay, whatever, make sure this looks correct. I would close this file, then I can approve the posting from here, add my comments here, looks good, and then press approve here on this website. Basically, it does the same thing as what we did in the first case where we did the approval from Excel. It's just a different way of doing it. And then once it's completed, it goes to the list of completed processes here. So here we actually we see some running processes. There are a couple of earlier ones, and these are the ones I just created today. You can see that has been active for 30 seconds, so that's the newest one. And then we have a list of completed processes, and then we can again come here. So we get a full history of all the posted Excel files, all the workflows, including the full workflow history. So we keep a full audit trail of the workflow here in the foundation website. So it's quite easy to use, and like I said, you can do this for any process, any SAP transaction. You just basically first build a script for it using Studio 11, and then you publish it to Foundation, and then you can use one of the workflows and associate that with the template. The way these workflows are then configured, I'll not get too deep into that at the moment, but I can just give you a sort of a quick overview of how these are configured. This is done using it is actually an online or a browser-based program where you configure workflows using these visual flowchart diagrams, sort of. So this is sort of a mock-up of what these processes could look like from like a design point of view. We have what we call swim lanes here. We have one lane for the originator, whoever starts the process, and we have another swim lane for the approver. In this case, I have labeled this swim lane as controller. So let's say it would be a controller who would be approving this posting. So this is how you configure the workflow. You just draw these kinds of shapes here to indicate tasks and things like that, and then based on the swim lane, it's associated to a person. So here the process starts. The originator sends the Excel for approval. It goes to the controller for approval, and in this case, if the controller says I reject this, then it would go back to the originator for revision. They would have to fix their posting, whatever was wrong with it, and then it would restart, go back to the beginning. They would send it back again to the controller for approval, and once he's happy with it, he would say this is approved. Then it would go to a next step in the process where it would be posted to SAP. Once it's done, it would send an email notification, and then it would end, and that would be the end of the workflow. And this is now quite easy to maintain and modify. So let's say, for instance, if I wanted to have a two-step approval here, I would first add a new swim lane. Let's say I want to have I'll just pick something out here because I'll not make this an actual working workflow, but let's say I will call this manager. So in addition to the controller, we would want the manager to also have a look at this and approve it. So now we could add another swim lane here. Then we would draw an approval block here on this swim lane somewhere here, for instance, and we could label this manager approval like so. And now we just have to modify this a little bit. We can move the shapes around here. So let's say when the controller approves it, instead of going to the post to SAP, we can move this little arrow here to indicate that it goes to the manager first. And then from the manager, we can draw another line to this posting. And then we'll just have to say that this is called, we go here when this manager approves this. Then we would maybe, if this guy rejects it, we could maybe draw another line here for rejections, something like this, and mark this as a rejected. So now there we go, that would be it. Now we would have another approval step associated with this workflow. So it's quite easy to build and manage these, specify the workflow using these kinds of visual shapes here. in the tool. That's the Excel workflow in a nutshell. So any questions so far, or shall we move on?
Yes, one question, hang on.
Yes.
All the workflow where you actually need one kind of approval is standard in SAP. So when you use
Okay. Yeah, there's lots of time. So if we're talking about just the Excel one, for example, if you already had the information coming in Excel and you wanted to you don't want to have to then open up SAP or try and use it that way, then that would be one for this. But in a minute, we're going to go on to the forms side of the workflow as well, which I think is probably better. We try and answer that question after we've gone onto the forms, because I think then you'll sort of see what the point of it is.
system landscape. So maybe as you know, we have only client licenses on our PCs, maybe runner or developer or studio or whatever, and then when we use this workflow, what is necessary? Is a server or what? I have no clue. So I heard there is a workflow, but what is what is mandatory or necessary to have this?
It's the server side as well. I will have Timo. Have you finished on the Excel side?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to close you down and open up a.
Yeah, sure.
To answer that question. Bear with me a second while I find the right PowerPoint.
Question to no license on their PC or so. They do not run. It's run on the server.
They need a license to be able to fill in.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, this might be easier to come back to after we've looked at the forms-based workflow. So in fact, I think that's probably the best way of doing it. Okay, yeah, if you want to, yeah. That's the one I'm after.
Why? What for? But it will basically use a lot of. I'm working more with functionality. and you want to change, you wouldn't be you would have something that will close to knowledge, but that would basically less of it and not cheap. But why?
Why?
Prioritize the so if you have
Okay, I've found my slide, so I can go into the what you need in a minute, but I'll just quickly go through what the forms is. Then I'll go through the what you need part, and then Demo can show a live demo of those forms-based solution. So in this particular demonstration or example that I'm going to be showing, we have the requester starting, asking, I think he's in this one, creating a new material, and he sends it on to the manager for approval, who can send it back to him and say, no, you need more information, or that's not right. Then it can run off in parallel, and going to the sales team and the plant team, they'll be filling in their parts that they need, and then it goes to the accounting team, and then it gets uploaded to SAP, and then emails get sent to everybody who needs to receive an email in this particular case. Okay. So I don't know how well you can see it, but on this part here, this is a sample form that we've built. It's a web-based form, so you'd go into SharePoint and open it up from there, and you would fill in the data. Here you could have open text data, or you can have drop-down lists, and the drop-down lists could be coming from SAP, or they could be coming from SharePoint. And it's a dynamic form, so the idea is that when you fill in a certain piece of data, so you have a drop-down list and you choose, for example, in this one, material description is not, base unit of measure. You could have a drop-down list, and the drop-down list could be 10 different options, and you choose PC in this particular one. It would know that PC also, or it's probably the other way around. If you choose material group, it would know that if this material group, then it would also be always PC. So then that particular field would then just lock or disappear, so you wouldn't need to see it anymore. So this is the idea behind this. And we had a customer in the Netherlands, and they were doing a material creation, and they had, I think it was 480 something fields that they had to fill in for a material creation, for one material creation. And using these forms, we managed to get it down 70% of those fields we managed to remove. So the whole idea behind that is that, you know, you're taking away that the pressure from the end user, that they don't, well, it's not just the time as well, it's the number of mistakes that could then end up going into the data. You're making sure that the data is correct before it goes in to SAP. So in this particular one, the requester fills in some basic data about the material, and then it goes off to the sales data. And at the top of the sales data team, it gives you some of the basic material that came from the last one. This is actually all one form, but depending on who's looking at it, it would change. So they would only see the basic material, and that would be locked, so they couldn't change it, and then you would fill in all their sales data from there. And the plant data, so in this particular example, you can't see it, but there's a little button here saying assign to me. So in this example, there's a team for the plant data. So it would go to everyone in that team, and then whoever picks it up first would go assign to me, and that would then lock it and assign it to them so nobody else could pick it up. And again, they see only the data they need to see, and then they can fill in the plant data. After that, it then goes on to accounting data, but just like the Excel one that we mentioned this morning, it can also then be uploaded by a system post or by the final approver, or it can go back to the originator if they have the correct access in SAP, and then we can use their credentials to upload it to SAP. And you have the full audit trail again that you would also have with the Excel solution.
So we asked about the what we need. Okay. If I go back a little bit,
this is what a lot of you are using, Windshuttle Connect. You have the licenses on your own machine, and it connects to Connect for your license administration, and then you can upload it to SAP. So this is a very technical pictures. This is very high level and easy to understand. The next step would be the user governance tool, which used to be called Central, so I need to update this. There it says Central, it's now called User Governance, I think, or Foundation User Governance. And for that, you would have to have the Windows Server, and it actually connects, instead of using Connect to use your license governance, you use it on the governance program itself. I'm trying to think, who of you do have Connect? Or yes, Central, you have it, yeah, and Ericsson, yeah. Oh, that's, yeah. In fact, Vestas, you don't. You have the next one we're going on to.
So the next one would be the full foundation, which also has the Windshuttle integration server,
and this is the part where you can start doing workflows, and this is what you have. So there's another screen there. So in answer to your question, yes, you would need a server to be able to run the workflows. As far as licenses are concerned, they are developed by a studio developer. Then you would have what is called a professional license, which is the same as a runner. Then there's an extra license type when you get to this part, and that's called a standard. And those are the Windshuttle workflow users. And the idea of those is you would be able to give them out to a lot more people within the company. So obviously the price of those ones is a lot lower. Yes. Okay, let's take a look at a demo. Demo, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. And I think you're still a presenter.
All right, correct. Yeah, let me just turn on the screen sharing and then.
Yes, great.
Should be good to go. All right. So I have here an example workflow form, an online form-based approach, so to say. So this is also, again, a finance-related posting. Surprisingly, many finance-related examples today. But again, this could be applied to any process. Doesn't really matter what the underlying script or SAP transaction there is. And from a development point of view, like David said, it would be a studio developer who first records and creates a normal Excel desktop-based script for this, and then later on we can then turn that into a web form and workflow-based solution. So what we see here is this is all, first of all, custom stuff. We have sort of this sort of blank looking form at the moment where it's just some header level data like who is the originator and who's the current user and things like that. The idea here is that this is all been developed to be dynamic. So the form changes depending on our selections here. So now I'm doing this as the originator. I want to start a new posting or a new request. So I can first select, in this example, we have different categories. Let's say this is an office expense, so we'll do some sort of expense report. Let's say we do a travel expense form or posting a request for company code 1000. And then once I press the continue button, it'll reload the form. You'll actually see the form changes quite a bit to accommodate these selections to generate the actual form for a travel expense posting. There we go. So we have for the SAP document, we have some header level data here. Let's say I'll put in here, these are my travel expenses for April, what's the date, 27th. Like so. Then we all have the date here, pre-field, document type, and currency. So the idea with these, or what makes these online forms really great is the fact that we have full control over everything. We can create complex rules that then control how the form is filled. One example being like we can utilize SharePoint lists. So for instance, currencies, or basically any field, we can make them a drop-down menu and have these values stored in a SharePoint list. So instead of having this like a blank text field where the user would need to type in EUR for euro, we instead make this a drop-down list which with the values stored in SharePoint to make sure then, because then we can control what currencies are available here, and that will allow us to ensure that only valid currencies are listed here. Which also, the fact that these are stored in SharePoint lists makes it easier from a management point of view. For instance, if I want to add a currency later on, if I want to add something that is not in the list, I would not need to go really into the development side of things. I wouldn't really need to open up the form and modify it. All I would need to do is go to the relevant SharePoint list and add a new entry, add a new currency to the list, and then when somebody opens up the form, the new currency will be available here. So that way it's easy for you, and usually this is done by key users or admins, so it's quite easy then to maintain this data. And then of course we can have more complex rules that control this. For instance, earlier we selected that we want to do this for company code 1000. We could have a rule that further limits these. We could have a rule that if I select company code 1000, the only allowed value would be euros, for instance. So then that of course further reduces the possibility that there are errors in the posting, because we have strict rules that dictate what kind of currencies or values can be used with any field. And then we of course also try to like pre-fill or automatically fill in, populate as many fields as possible based on like the selection. So for instance, if we are doing a travel expense, we get the data here that are related to those types of posting, and if there are certain sort of default values that are more or less always used for these kinds of postings, we can then automatically use those values. So we have the header level data, then we have the actual line items for the various the various expenses. So here's another example. We have account numbers listed somewhere in SharePoint, but then we have a rule here that since we selected travel expenses earlier, so this is a travel expense form, we can then limit that, okay, now this drop down will only show account numbers that are actually relevant to travel expense postings. So that way we can dynamically control what kind of values and fields are available or show up on the form for the user. Then we can have rules like here, depending on what account number you select. I don't know how well you can see this on your end, but for some of these fields, the color changes to indicate that these are mandatory required fields. So for instance, this values of this account, we need a tax code. I'll just pick something here at random, and we need to have an assignment number. For another account, we maybe need another. For this one, we only need the tax category, but not the assignment number. So we can then control dynamically depending on what account we select. So sort of the requirements here change, and then we would be filling in the data here, and we can add new rows to this list to actually add the different travel expenses. I actually have these sort of a sample travel expense posting in an Excel file, so we can also use an Excel import here. So this is especially useful if you have like long lists, or you are either already maintaining this data in Excel, or if this is something that is a recurring thing, you do this similar posting every now and then you could use Excel templates to upload the data to the form. So I can just bring up my my sample Excel file here. I think that's it. This should be like 4 or 5 different accounts, so it's not too much. Row count 6, and then I can just upload it, and then you can see this. It fills in the or imports the data from Excel. So we have a proper travel expense posting with accounts, amounts, and some comments here. We have also added here like some calculations, so this keeps track of the debit and credit amounts and the current balance, just to make it easy for the user to see that if the balance is not 0, they can then adjust the values accordingly to make sure it's actually a valid posting. Another thing we can do with these online forms, which is optional but sometimes really useful, is we can force certain things. For instance, at the moment I cannot actually submit this. We get an error. The form cannot be submitted before data has been successfully validated. For this one, we have created a rule that we have to first actually run an active validation against SAP, which will take this, when I press the validate button here, it'll take this travel expense posting and try to see if this could be, it basically tries to post it to SAP without saving. So this would be like similar to the normal validation you have if you have been working with Excel and just Studio and developing scripts. You have the validation. This is a similar thing. We validate the data and we get a message here. It's saying it was successfully validated, which means that this would be an okay posting from an SAP point of view, no errors. We just didn't yet post anything. So, and then that will actually lock these selections. So I can no longer change these values here. I would have to click on the re-edit button to unlock this. So sort of we have created this kind of logic that if you come back here and modify the values, you then have to do the validation again. So this ensures that every time we change a value, we have to run the validation to then make absolutely sure that these are correct values from an SAP point of view. So this would be a proper correct posting. Again, this is all customizable. You don't have to have this if you don't want to. Other things we can enforce here is, for instance, attachments. Again, if I try to submit this, it is, well, I'm still missing an approver, but it's also, I believe we have mandatory attachments here. It will give me an error that we are missing an attachment. So I'll add some PDF file. So we can also have rules that each posting must have between 1 and 5 attachments, for instance, if that is something you use normally. Again, optional. You don't have to have mandatory attachments if you don't want to, but here it's now PDF is now attached to the form with the delete button here if I want to remove it. Then we have a approver selection. I'll select myself here as the approver. Again, this is something that is customizable. This is sort of just as a convenience thing for demonstrations. We can pick the approver. You could have the approver automatically selected based on the posting. Maybe you'd have one approver for these kinds of office expenses, but if it was another kind of posting, then it would automatically go to another person. Or we can create more complex rules on the workflow side, like let's say, depending on some data on the form, let's say the total sum of the posting. That could be something that if it's, let's say if it's less than 10,000 euros, we only need one approver, but if it's between 10,000 and 100,000, then we need another manager approval step. If it's more than that, then we need a third director approval step. So we can then have dynamic workflows that then, so the workflow can change depending on like the form data, for instance. So we can do a lot of complex stuff that way. But this is just one thing, a simple one approval step kind of workflow. And I'll add some comments here. Please approve my travel expenses. And then I can finally submit the request here. Now again, it would go to the approver and it would generate an automatic email notification. It takes a while for the notification to come through, and then it would say, the email would say that there's a task pending for you on the foundation website, and then there will be a link to the form. So the approver could then, once he gets the email, he can come here and open up the process or form we just filled in and come here and approve or reject the form. So now we are looking at the same form from the approver point of view. So basically it's the same form, but now everything's locked. So I can, in this example, I can't change anything. So I can either just approve it, or if there is a mistake here, I can add my comments saying that, okay, this is not correct, that's too much, there's no way 5 nights at the hotel was 500 euros, please fix this, and I could send it back to the originator who would then need to revise it. And then I can view the attachments here, and then it has some additional data here in this process control section. So it shows some data about the actual workflow, like who started it, the originator's comments. My comments are here, how long, when it was posted, and like how long it's been active. I can reassign it to another manager here if you need it. But if everything is fine, I can just approve it here, add some comments, and click on approve. And then that essentially ends the workflow, or at least the user interaction part of the workflow. It would then go to a background posting queue where it will take a while until it's processed and then posted to SAP. And then eventually they end up here in the list of completed processes. There's one from, so we don't have to wait, I'll open up the one from I made yesterday. So again, with the same as with the Excel type workflows, same with these form-based workflows, the whole audit trail is stored in here in the foundation side. So I can come back here, open up a completed process form and have a look what this was about, see what kind of posting this was. So let's see, this was made yesterday at 3 o'clock and then approved at this time, and see what it's about. Shows the document number that was posted to SAP. So we have that information here. Again, I can just review things. And then finally, at the end of the form is like the full workflow history. So we can see this guy started the workflow. Here are his comments. We can see when it was started, how long it took. Here's the approval step, how long, when that was done, how long it took. So we can also keep track of like the throughput, how long it took for these processes to finish. So we can get some key figures, like maybe identify some bottlenecks. If there's like some approver who always, it takes ages for him to approve the processes, we can see that from here as well. So we have full workflow history here and whole form and relevant attachments. So the way this is developed would be that the workflow itself is developed in the same fashion as the one we looked at earlier, like this. So it's a diagram showing how the process moves from one approver to another The only difference here is that since this is not an Excel-based workflow, this is a form-based one, so we have to also develop a form for this, which requires a bit of extra effort. But again, this is something that's has a nice graphical interface, so we can build these forms using these graphical elements. If I want to have input fields here, I can just drag and drop elements, like a couple of text boxes here, drop down menu. Then I can modify what this looks like. Let's say I want to have more columns side by side, make them smaller, and so on. I can pick elements, drop them on the field, drop them on the form here, add some buttons here and there, have a submit button, and then like so, using these drag and drop elements, I can build a form for my process. So it's a little bit more complicated than enabling the Excel type workflow, because we also need to build the form, and especially if you have lots of rules, developing all those takes some time. But in the end, I think it's really worth it, because it makes for a better workflow, because then we have more rules, we have more controlled the whole process will be, and then we can make sure that there are no incorrect or invalid postings made. So that's the full workflow in short. So this was a really quick introduction, but yeah, if you have any questions, please now's the time.
Any questions? Nothing? Yeah. Yeah. And do that part in SAP. You could do that.
Validating the data itself. And the other one is to prove the amount that they're buying.